Hello and welcome to Fingers on Plastic. I'm Little Dave and today we're going to be looking at something slightly different for the channel. Seeing as though about 2 weeks ago it was the 40th anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back, I thought we'd look at some Star Wars figures today. Now all the figures I'm going to show you today are from the last 20 years, starting with figures from the Power of the Jedi line, which I believe started in 2000. I do have some figures from the Power of the Force line. I'm not the biggest fan of those, to be fair, so I thought I'd cut it halfway and start 20 years ago. So right, let's get on with it. So obviously I'll do these in some kind of order the way the film went, so we'll start having a look at some figures based around Hoth. So obviously the film begins with the meteor, or they believe a meteor storm hitting the planet, which turned out to be an Imperial probe droid. And we see Han. Oh, this is one of the Hans I've got. And they're out investigating. I can't remember what year this one was. I think it's from about 9 years ago, this one. Quite nice. Quite like the look of him. Nice little pointy finger. Now, I also have another one. This was from around the time of episode 2. Less posing on this one. Also, he does have an action gimmick. And you press it and he'd do that. Now, the reason why he does that is he came with Luke's lightsaber. And obviously, you can the point where he cuts open a Tauntaun to slide a Luke inside. Now, obviously, I haven't got the accessories with these. These have been dug out of various boxes. All my Star Wars figures are tucked away at the moment, and on all the weaponry is in separate boxes. So it would have took me absolutely ages to dig all that out. So I thought, really, we're just looking at the figures. To be fair, it's Star Wars. They're going to come with a blaster or a lightsaber, aren't they? Right. So obviously, we were talking about Luke. Here is Luke. Now this one, he has obviously blood and scarring on his face after he's attacked by the Hoth Wampa. Now, one of the things you can do with this figure, because of the base he came with a like an ice base. You could shove him in, so it made him look like obviously he was stood in ice and snow. But if you have the Hoth Wampa, which I do somewhere, you can stick that on top of his section, and you can hang Luke upside down. You can turn this round, and you can also tilt his head, so you can have him trying to use the Force to grab his lightsaber. It's a cool little figure, to be fair. Quite like that one. I'm not skin on the way the neck is because of the way that did that, but I still quite like it. They always get Luke's. We're going to look at this as we go on with these. The Luke's every time. I don't think they quite get him right. I don't think there's ever been a Luke figure what's as good as, like, say, the Han Solo ones, or even Princess Leia. I just don't think they've ever captured Mark Hamill's look entirely correctly. Right, so we're talking about Princess Leia. Now, this is one of the newest figures I've picked up. I picked this up about a year or so ago. I've still never taken it out of the packaging. Now, this is Princess Leia in a Hoth get-up. It's not a bad figure. As you can see, it works with the Force FX. If you don't know what that is, it's like a weird sort of gauntlet thing you put on your arm and you pick up the figures up and they say certain phrases and make sound effects and stuff. I got this one really cheap. It was like $2.99 from the Entertainer. It's from the Solo range, which didn't sell at all. In fact, it was very, very hard to find this stuff on shelves in the UK. After The Last Jedi, a lot of Star Wars figures just seem to disappear from toy shelves. This is still the case at the moment. Right, we're still looking at Hoth, obviously. So here we are, I have a Hoth Rebel Trooper. Hey, he's not bad. Face sculpt isn't brilliant, I don't think. But typical sort of background character. Now we also have General Riken, I believe. Not a bad figure, to be fair. I think it captures the likeness of the actor quite well. He came with like the weird sort of video screens they had, whatever they were, map screens, and he came with one of them. Right, another one. Now I believe, if you're not aware of it, he made a very, very brief appearance in the film. John Ratzenberger, who was Cliff in Cheers, and also does the voice of like Ham in Toy Story, and I believe he appears in just about every Pixar film. Now I believe that's supposed to be a figure of him. I might be wrong, but yeah, he did briefly make a small scene in Empire Strikes Back. I'm sure that's who they've gone for with this figure. I can't quite remember, but I quite like him. It's a nice looking one. Right, there is also as well, I forgot to point out, there is other figures in my collection which I haven't got a hold of at the moment. They're in boxes put away. I've also got figures in sets which I can't get my hands on at the moment. So I am missing out of this Luke when he's in the Bacta tank. But also from that scene, if I don't knock me light box over, we have FX7. Which is quite a cool little figure as well. This was from the Power of the Jedi line. It's got nice little articulation, and all these little arms open up like that, which I think is cool. With a little bit of articulation on them. That turns like that. I think I do have a 2-1B somewhere as well. I can't quite place where I put him. If I don't have one in these lines, I definitely had one in the Power of the Jedi line. Right, so that's what the good guys. So I've done a quick edit here. I've got to add one figure before we move on to the bad guys. This one, still in his packet, unfortunately a bit yellowed now, so it will have to come out at some point. But this is a figure of General McQuarrie. Now for those of you who don't know, this is basically a figure of Ralph McQuarrie, who made a brief cameo in The Empire Strikes Back, just briefly walking around in the background. I thought it was very nice of him eventually to bring out a figure of him, seeing as though the impact Ralph McQuarrie made on the Star Wars universe. If you weren't aware, he was the conceptual artist, and one of the main reasons why the original film got funded from his brilliant artwork, what George Lucas passed around the film studios to explain his vision. And he also went on to do artwork for all, I think, the other 2 films as well in the original trilogy. And also, I think he did some of the matte paintings as well. So there, thought I'd show you that one. Alright, let's move on to the bad guys. So the first one I'm going to look at is Mr. Bronson. No, it's not Mr. Bronson. It's Admiral Ozzel. But of those of you who obviously remember Grey and Jill in the UK, it was the same actor who played Mr. Bronson. He also played Adolf Hitler in Indiana Jones and Last Crusade. He was a guy you saw get choked out by Vader on the video screen for landing too close to the Hoth system. Right, we also have General Veers. I believe the actor was called Julian Glover. He also played the main bad guy in the Indiana Jones and Last Crusade. I'm sure Julian Glover was his name. But yeah, he was the Imperial officer on board the AT-AT on the main one, which is attacking the rebels on Hoth. This figure does come with like an armour as well, because obviously in that point in the film he's wearing like an armour as well, so it did come like that, so you can place it on top of him. And obviously from that scene we have an AT-AT trooper, or AT-AT pilot. Quite a cool little figure, like that one. Special place in my heart. Back in the day, the AT-AT trooper was my first ever Star Wars figure. After seeing the original film on TV for the first time. Now, there had been other Star Wars figures in my house because I have an older brother, but my very first one I ever bought was the AT-AT driver. Right, during that scene as well, obviously, we had various pilots flying around. Now, I do have various pilots, but not any of different ones from Hoth apart from Luke. So here's Luke in his his pilot's gear from that scene. This figure does obviously come with like a grappling hook as well for when he cut open the body of an AT-AT and threw a grenade up there. Not a bad figure. One of the better ones of Luke, I think, in sort of pilot costume. Right, so that's it for Hoth. Obviously after that scene they all disappear and fly off in their various places. Luke goes running off to Dagobah and the others try to escape. So, where should we go? Let's go Dagobah next. So obviously we know Luke crash lands on Dagobah. This is a figure from, I think, about 9 years ago of Luke when he first lands. A wet look Luke, I would call him. Yeah, it's not bad. Not brilliant, but not bad. Have a look at the back of the box. There was various figures released at the time. So obviously, as we know, he lands there, and a certain droid gets very, very filthy because we're falling in the swamp. And he didn't fall on. Well, he did fall over, didn't he? He ends up in the swamp. Yeah, it's not a bad one, this. Now, there isn't any articulation. There is a light up and sound gimmick. But I took the batteries out years ago because this figure is probably about 15 years old now. So yeah, he would normally, I would light up and he'd make his little chirping and beeping. But I quite like the sort of filthy look to him. Nice change from the normal white one. And obviously, for the first time we encounter Yoda himself, this little guy. And what a character he is. He's sort of strange at the time. 40 years ago we were all amazed by this little puppet. And how lifelike he was. And how well he was performed as well. And it's strange, some sort of 19 years later we're all going crazy for a baby Yoda as well. So it just goes to show the impact that character's had over the years, I think. But yeah, that's good. So obviously while that was going on, Han and Leia and Chewbacca are trying to escape. They end up in a fight in the asteroid field. And they end up, at one point, having to chase off Minox. And we have a Chewbacca from that scene. Obviously with a breathing apparatus on. Yeah, it's not a bad figure. My only disappointment with this one is obviously he's posed in such a way that he has to really be holding a blaster most of the time to look right. And his bowcaster with this one looked a bit silly, to be fair, because it had a stupid sort of like firing gimmick with it, so it made it look a bit daft. But yeah, that's Chewie from that one. Now, at that point as well, we get to see Mr. Darth Vader in a way we've never seen him before. Now, this was a 500 figure, what was released I think around the time of Revenge of the Sith, and it's obviously Darth Vader in his meditation chamber. This one's still sealed. Obviously this bit is part of the packaging, the top part, the rest of it, of him sat inside there. Now there is a gimmick to this. I'll have to turn it around and show you, where you can slide that up if it wants to go up. There we go. And you can see inside at the back of his scarred head. Yeah, I think that's one of the best scenes in Empire Strikes Back. It's the first time we kind of see there is some sort of, in a way, humanity towards with Darth Vader. And obviously plays into what's coming up at the end of the film. So at that point, we do realise that Darth Vader is going to hire some bounty hunters to go searching for them, the Millennium Falcon. Now this is where I'm going to have a massive fail, because I've only got one of them to hand. The rest of the ones I've got are all away in sets and in boxes. So the only one I've got at the moment is a Dengar, which I don't think's bad. Quite a good likeness of him. I mean, he is a character who only appeared on screen for a few seconds, didn't he? But it's not too bad. Yeah, I do actually have a Boba Fett to hand at the moment, but he's a Boba Fett from Return of the Jedi. Those of you who aren't aware, there is differences in his costume between Empire and Jedi, especially in the colouring. So that's why I'm not going to show that one, because technically, well, it isn't from Empire Strikes Back. So anyway, at that point, Han and Leia and Chewie and 3PO, they all escape to Cloud City, where they land and meet a certain Lando Calrissian. Quite like this figure. This was from the Power of the Jedi range. Yeah, I quite like him. I quite like the cloth goods cape on him. Makes a change. Decent figure. Again, a bit annoying that he's posed in such a way that he really needs a blaster in his hand all the time. There's no sort of articulation. But I do like him. It's a nice figure. And obviously from that planet, well, it's not really a planet, it's a city, isn't it? We have one of his security officers. Now this guy would obviously come with a hat and a pair of handcuffs and various bits and bobs. Now, here is also Han, or one of the Hans I've got, based around Cloud City. He did come with, I think, handcuffs to make him look like he'd been shackled. And his blaster. I quite like this one. I do have another one which I'm going to show you in a second. I'm not the biggest fan of. So here's my next Han. Now I'm not so keen on this. This one is from, it came with the torture device, what Darth Vader used on him when they're trying to torture him to get to attract Luke's attention. It's the legs on it. I don't know what it is around a certain time. Some of the Han Solo figures, the legs were so spindly. It just looks odd. Massive body, odd looking legs. Not the biggest fan of it, but I think I bought it more probably because of it going with the torture device. Now somewhere, I think it's on the back of, yeah, I'll just show you quickly, on the back of the Ralph McQuarrie figure. If you can see, it's just there, what it looked like. So that is cool, but not the biggest fan of the figure. Right, let's move on to Luke and what he was up to. So obviously at this point, Luke's met Yoda. Yoda's actually explained, and instead of winding him up who he actually is, and he begins his training. So here he is. Now he does come with the backpack part. The idea is that would plug in the back of him there, and the Yoda figure I've got, which I showed you earlier, breaks in half, and you can shove his top half in the backpack and have him like that. Also as well, Luke himself comes with I believe, yeah, it was a couple of different arms, so you can have him doing a handstand. You can remove the backpack straps and have him doing his handstand when he's training. Now also around this time, he senses something going on in a certain part while he's training, and he's told not, well, he goes wandering off into a dark part and encounters Darth Vader. Now this Darth Vader has been slightly damaged over time, so his head falls off, which is coincidental because it's obviously the Force, I wouldn't know if you'd call it a Force ghost. It's obviously the bit what kind of hints to what Luke could become. Now one of the cool things about this figure as well is you can pull the faceplate off, as in the film when Luke beheaded Darth Vader. At that point you see Luke's face underneath. I love that, real good gimmick. I'll have to try and repair this figure at some point. It is probably one of my favourite Darth Vader figures for that. I do like that figure. Right, so at that point obviously he's aware that something's going on and he senses his friends are in trouble, and Yoda tries to convince him not to go, along with the spirit of Obi-Wan. So here he is, looking all spangly in disco. He's not bad. It's one of those, isn't it? I prefer him looking like this than just some sort of blue see-through plastic figure like they've done in the past. But yeah, he's not too bad. It's quite a good one. Right, getting towards the end now. So obviously, at that point, Han's been frozen in carbonite, about to be took away by Boba Fett. Lando and Leia and Chewie, who's got C-3PO on his back, go chasing after him while Luke turns up on Dagobah for his confrontation with Darth Vader. Now, this Luke is a bit of an odd one. His legs aren't great, but that's part of the gimmick he's got. He does have a push button for swinging his lightsaber around. His legs are like that because he does come with like the sort of antenna, so you can hang him hanging upside down from the end of the film after the big reveal, and obviously trying to use the Force to call to Leia to come and rescue him. Now obviously it's going to happen, but yes, he does have his removable hand, which is on with a magnet. There you go. Yeah, I think I could do with an update of this figure. I quite like the lightness on this one. It's not too bad, but the figure itself's a little bit odd. The weathering and damage on his costume is brilliant though. Quite decent. So obviously, just before that scene, as we know, we had the big reveal with Darth Vader. And this figure is obviously from that moment when he's reaching out and telling Luke to join him, and he's his father. It's not bad. I quite liked it at the time. There's probably been better figures since, but for the time of this one, it was again around the time of episode 2. I quite liked it. I quite liked they'd actually done a figure from that scene in the film. He also comes with like an action gimmick what makes him swing his arm, which I always thought was a bit pointless for this figure. But hey, seeing as though he's posed like that. But yeah, it's not bad. The funny thing about this one, I searched for him for absolutely ages, and I went to a different town and there was a comic shop there, and I asked him if he had one, and he said yeah, he'd had one saved under the counter for some guy who would never come back for it, and if I wanted it I could buy it. So it cost me like I think $9.99 at the time. 2 weeks later, my local cheap discount store in my town had an absolute load of figures from this range, and I could have picked him up for $1.99. Well, there you go. I took the risk and I got him. Alright, so obviously after then, Luke's been rescued, and we're approaching the end of the film. And I've got one final figure to look at, and it's Luke in his bathrobe. Well, we all know why he was in his robe, because he was having his new hand sorted out. It's not a bad little gimmick. Well, it's not really a gimmick, but it's kind of cool in this eventually. I'm not so much of a fan of the sort of cape. It's a little bit big. Yeah. Again, with me being a Star Wars fan, I always try and collect as many different looks as I can. That was one of the reasons for picking this one up. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I picked it up because it's Luke and I wanted to collect it. Right, so that's the end of it. I hope you enjoyed this quick look at figures. Yes, there is figures we skipped over and didn't look at. And I do have various ones, but trying to find them all at the moment will be impossible. I think over time I will do some more Star Wars videos for you all. So we'll try at some point to do that and look at various ranges from various films or just various characters. Right, thanks for that. I hope you enjoyed this little look at Empire Strikes Back in figure form from the last 20 years. And I hope to see you all soon. Bye bye. So just a quick follow up to the video I recorded last night. I forgot to record a couple of figures. So this is one of them I failed to record, which I believe when this was released about 8 or 9 years ago was the first time they'd ever done a figure depicting this scene in Empire Strikes Back. And it's Han, obviously around the point where they were repairing the Millennium Falcon, when he gets word that Luke hasn't reported back in yet. Quite cool. Again, suffers from those spindly little legs I'm not so keen on. But like I say, for a first figure, first time in the line, I quite like it. Right, the other one I forgot to film was this Princess Leia from towards the end of the film when they were escaping from Bespin. This was part of the Power of the Jedi line, so we're probably close to being about 20 years old now. This was the first time I think they changed her size to make her stop being similar size to Luke and Han. They released a figure earlier in the line from Endor and she was absolutely ginormous compared to this one. Yeah, it's alright. Again, suffers from that. Really, she should be posed with a blaster in her hand and you can't do much else. Right, that was that for them. No more hopefully to follow up on, unless I go digging again. Well, that might be in another video. Right, thanks for watching. See you later.
Fingers on plastic.